What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Awakening World. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas. Let's take a deep breath. It's a really extraordinary time on the planet right now, especially in this country of the United States. This show, The Global Peace Tribe, was born almost 5 years ago when the pandemic hit. And we were isolated, and there was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of political disruption. There was a lot of chaos and confusion, and we came together as a way to, as a global peace tribe, make our way through that time. I've had so many people reach out and say, Scott, this feels like 4 or 5 years ago. It feels like that time again, where there's a lot of chaos going on. There's a lot of difficulty, obviously huge choices being made by the new presidential administration and how that's impacting people, and climate change and all the challenges facing the possibility of nuclear war. And when it's a time of so much difficulty, so much challenge, rising up are what I call spiritual activists. I want to acknowledge my friend Andrew Harvey, who's been on this show many times, and he coined that phrase many years ago, spiritual activism. And tonight we're going to hear from several women that I have the greatest of respect for. And each and every one of these women is a powerful spiritual activist. And in no particular order, joining us tonight is Dr. Marty K. Casey, Reverend Rhetta, hallelujah, Anasuya, Dr. Mama Ivy Shadiah, and our beloved Piper Dellums. And you are looking at 5 women whose life is all about spiritual activism. And so we're going to hear from them tonight, how they manage personally, professionally. I think it's going to be a very inspiring evening. And of course, we are going to open it up to dialogue and conversation. So we want to hear what you have to say. And you can even start off by putting in the chat box, what does it mean to be a spiritual activist? And remember, we can do that through many forms. And one wonderful form is through music, which is how our beloved Omashar does his spiritual activism. And so with that, I turn it over to you, Omashar.
All my relations, I am one with you. In all that you teach me, I give thanks to you. four-legged winged one, creatures great and small. In humble honor I will stand tall, walking path the straight of harmony. All my relations can walk with me. And you who've passed over, reach back through the veil. We're thinking of you though you set sail. Heaven and earth are one reality. Know that you love you, we love you, you're free. And our galactic family, we recognize you. We love hearing from you and see you reaching through. In our hearts we listen as I pray for interstellar messages coming our way. Four-legged winged ones, creatures great and small. In humble honor I will stand tall, walking straight the path of harmony. All my relations walk with me. All my relations, I am one with you. In all that you teach me, I give thanks to you. With my heart we listen as we pray. We know you are with us, guiding our way.
I could have carried that on for like another hour with all the dancing. However, we have a show. You're muted, young man, and I'm going to channel you. Unmute yourself, brother. Okay, there we are.
Reverend Rhetta for an opening prayer.
Thank you, Omashar. That beautiful reminder, all our relations. And thank you, Scott, for the invitation for this evening. So I want to invite us in the energy of that movement and that sort of rocking that Omashar does so well, that we breathe into the space of our movement. We breathe into the space of the holy now and get to settle into this moment with another deep breath together. And I invite you into another deep breath that we get to synchronize, we get to join and become the container and the vessel for this evening. And another breath so we can imagine walking across a threshold together, becoming this virtual circle. I like to imagine the corners of the boxes we see softening into circles. Become a virtual circle holding the hand and heart of the box next to us, right? And neither time, technology, or space impeding us from joining our hearts. And so I invite each of us in the ways that we are in relationship to the somethingness bigger than ourselves to place our attention, our awareness for a moment on whatever that is for you, whether it be God, nature, highest self, justice, liberation, whatever that somethingness that is transcendent of who we are. I invite you to just take a moment to bring it into your awareness. And so I speak into the volume of love that is gathering as we bring into our awareness that which is larger than ourselves. I speak with deep gratitude for the miracle of life, for this holy and precious moment that we get together and be the ongoing miracle that is community, that is a gathering of souls with intention for love, for peace, for inspiration, and for a movement in the conversation that we're about to begin, a movement in heart, mind, and spirit that is an incredible, emboldening uplift toward justice, liberation, and embodied peace on the planet. I'm just giving thanks for everyone present on the call, giving thanks for everyone's intention to join in an incredible task of this moment to declare and become the embodiment of that which we intend. May this call be held by ancestors and love and vision and prophetic wonderment. May we be in this moment together a beacon, a calling forth of the best of humanity represented right in this call in this moment. May we be the sparks, the intention, that which moves through these challenging times and allows us to be both present and connected to what is and also tethered to the becoming. It is my deepest, deepest calling forth to invite us deeper in with this life, with this miracle of now. May this call be blessed, deeply blessed as we are held together. All of the sharing, may they be formed and intended toward this goal of love becoming preciously present on the planet. And may the spectrum of all of the things that are challenging, that are happen, be held within this intention. And I want to especially name our sister Angie Stone, who recently, very, very recently passed away, and hold her light and those who were in this unfortunate accident with her, just to hold all of them in the body of this prayer, in the loving container that we are becoming. And I also, let's take a moment and really be with that holding for Angie and for all of the things that are heavy on our hearts in this moment. Just want to take a second and invite each of you to hold in this embodied in this becoming love, those things that are challenging. So just when you take a moment and bring that which is challenging for you in this moment into your awareness. Held in love for the sake of love, with the intention to move into love for the purpose of becoming love. All that we are holding, may we remember, may we be grounded in that which is larger than ourselves, and intend and act in a way that aligns us with the highest and best that's possible in this moment. As we do that individually, as we do that in our close-in relationships, as we do that in small circles, as we do that in larger community, as we do that in cities and boroughs as we do that across cities and across states. May that which is within us that knows where the compass leads when love is at the center, may that guide us tonight and always. In the name of every name of God, in the name of every name of the transcendent, and in the name of that which is beyond naming, I pray. Ashe. Amen.
Ashe. Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Rhetta. And we look forward to hearing you speak about spiritual activism. And also, she's going to be sharing a poem with us tonight. So we're going to get to hear Reverend Rhetta in many different ways. Thank you so much for that beautiful opening prayer.
Thank you. You're welcome.
People were asking who Angie Stone was. Just before the show began, we learned, it happened on the news a few hours ago, Angie Stone was a very popular R&B singer. She was in a band called The Sequence, and she was killed in a car accident earlier today. So that's who Reverend Rhetta was referencing. And yeah, so many beloveds leaving our planet at this time. Each woman that's with us tonight has such beautiful medicine for us. And so there's no particular order. Each are of equal power and value in spiritual activism. I am going to call on Dr. Marty K. Casey. She's been correcting me that I got to get the K in there. We're going to call on Dr. Marty K. Casey first. Hello, Dr. Marty.
Well, hello, Scott. How are you tonight? And thank you for adding that K in there. I tell people all the time that K is important because there is a Dr. Marty out there selling dog food, and there's a Marty Casey out there who's a rock star. They both are great people, but they're not me.
There is only one Dr. Marty K. Casey, that's for sure.
Wow. Thank you for having us on here tonight, having us back, Scott. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. And just let me know when you want me to pull up that photo that you sent me.
You know what? We'll get to the photo in just a second. So let me just jump right in so that I'll leave enough room for my sisters to do what they come to do tonight as well. I first of all would like to acknowledge Reverend Rhetta. Thank you for your grounding, your prayers, totally received. This is the day the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. And even though sometimes throughout the day there's so many things that's going on, and we may even say that things are going wrong, but I just believe that I serve a God that doesn't make any mistakes, and so we have to be in acceptance of all things. And even as you made mention of a friend of mine, Angie Stone, I am I call myself an activist, which is a professional actress and activist. But Scott wants us to speak tonight to what we believe to be a spiritual activist. And wow, I cannot wait to answer that because it's all in alignment with the work that I do. So I just kind of want to just say, give a little bit of my background. As a professional actress, I had an opportunity to meet Angie Stone with a very good friend of mine, who's another great R&B Grammy Award winning Shirley Murdoch. And so people are very special to our hearts when we have an opportunity to have been in their presence. And just like everyone here in this Zoom room, I'm telling you, every time I hear Omar Sharp play a song and you all get up dancing, you become a part of who we are. And so it is important for each of us to hold each other up at all times because life is just so unpredictable. I don't like to say life is short. I don't believe no mistakes are being made, but I do believe that life is unpredictable. And so therefore, let's be intentional and love on each other every moment, every chance that we get. So with that being said, spiritual activism, what does that mean to me? Well, the first thing that I have to say that the spiritual part is my belief. The activism is my fight. And some may say, fight? Oh my God, that sounds so negative. No, it's not. We have to stand for something or we'll fall for anything. If I did not have fight in me, I would not be doing the work that I do today in Ungun Institute, where we help individuals disarm from trauma. A lot of trauma that is the result of bullying, of domestic violence, suicide prevention, and gun violence. That's some very difficult work to do, but somebody has to do it. And so it is important for me to, I believe, to say yes to those things that are difficult at times. And one of the most difficult times in my life, in my own city, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. And I live just 10 minutes from Ferguson. Some of you all may have heard of Ferguson when there was an 18-year-old young man who was shot and murdered by a police officer. And this was kind of like in the beginning of the, taking a stance with how police were policing in certain communities. And the result of that, it was ending in death. And Michael Brown was shot and killed. And I remember we had so many different people of influence to come to our city to really take a stand and really try to figure out, how do we change laws? How do we move things forward to make things better so that this doesn't continue? And I had the very, very special honor of having an opportunity to take a very, very special guest around our city to show him around and give him the history of St. Louis and what had been happening after the unrest of Ferguson. He actually came to our city in November of 2015. So the unrest of Ferguson happened in 2014. And then exactly about a year or so later, he came to town. Well, this is where things really began to change for me. And I'm going to share a little bit about that story, but I would like to show his picture first so you know who I'm talking about. This is no other than the wonderful and historical, well respected Congressman John Lewis. Congressman John Lewis, and may he also rest in peace. In peace. Oh, and in peace. Thank you, Scott, for showing him. Okay. And I'll get back to the story now. When Congressman John Lewis came, he was showing his movie, a documentary about his life where he had marched on Selma. On the bridge in Selma with Dr. Martin Luther King. And if those who may not remember the story, John Lewis was the one who was actually hit in the head, and became like a bloody Sunday during that time of the march in Selma. And so he was coming to show his documentary that he had filmed, but he had never seen the end result of it. He decided to wait to show it here in St. Louis because of the unrest that had happened in Ferguson. And I had the honor to take him and his handler around town. I escorted him to his show at Washington University. I took him to the very spot where to the very spot where Michael Brown was actually murdered. When I picked him up from the airport, that was the first thing he asked me about. And I said, well, you know what? Before I take you to the hotel, would you like to go to that area? And he said, yes. And so we did. Congressman John Lewis got out of my car and he stood in the very spot in the streets where the incident happened. And he wept. I mean, he cried like just an undescribable moment to see a man just cry profusely in the manner that he did. And cars were coming really fast. So I told his handler, I don't want to interrupt his moment, but I am concerned. Let's go ahead and get him back to the car. So when he got in the car, of course, I'm driving. He's sitting in the passenger seat and his handler was in the back. Before I got ready to pull off, he grabbed my hand and he said, I'm sorry. And I just assumed he was apologizing for standing in the street and, having a moment. And I said, oh, no, sir, you don't need to apologize for that. And he cut me off. He says, no. I am apologizing because I thought when we marched across that bridge in Selma, I thought we fixed it.
Mm.
And I see that we have not. And so I am handing you, young lady, this baton. And I want you to run this race, continue to run this race, and don't stop until it's fixed. Can you imagine Congressman John Lewis holding your hand and giving you that assignment. That is the moment that I believe that I became a spiritual activist. Because I hold him so deeply in my heart with this work that I do. And I try to be very intentional about this work because of the words he spoke to me in my car, outside of the very place where a young man was shot and killed because he was Black. And when I took him to see his show that night and escorted him there, when it got to the moment where he was hit in the head, he slumped and put his head on my shoulder and he cried again. And all I could say was, don't worry, I'm going to do what you told me to do. I show up to get into good trouble every time I'm asked, because that's what he stood for. And I am honored that I have been given that moment and opportunity to meet someone in the political realm who believed in world peace for all. Not some, but for all. So being a spiritual activist, it's not easy. It's not easy. We put our lives on the lines for our beliefs and the way that we have to fight. We are fighting for peace. And it's not easy, especially in these times. So we need you. We also need you. If you can't be on that track running with me while I try to cross the finish line like I was asked, at least be in the stands cheering for me. Because I'm not just running for me. I'm running for all of us. Thank you.
To go to gallery view, I'm seeing people, including myself, in tears. What an extraordinary story. And just sending our love and appreciation to our beloved Dr. Marty. And I'm going to show that photo again. I'm imagining most of us do know who John Lewis is, but it would be worthwhile to go back, look him up on Wikipedia tonight, or pull him up on YouTube. I'm sure that there's some amazing moments to be able to hear him. And Marty, you are carrying on the baton in a very beautiful and powerful way. I want to read a few of the comments actually coming in. Diara writes, Dr. Marty K, I have been appreciating your messages on Facebook, balancing stalwart faith with cautionary prudence. Oh, those are powerful words. Let's say that again. As spiritual activists, balancing stalwart faith with cautionary prudence. Beautiful. Carol Craig writes, Dr. Marty, there's no excuse for the horrendous treatment bestowed upon our fellow citizens only because of their color. It's a disgrace because content of character will always be the most important trait each of us possess. There's no comparison between us here on this call and those fools. Well, now we're getting political. We have at least one member of the audience, at least one, who considers our current administration to be fools. And I'm imagining, Carol, you're not alone. We do have to be careful not to be too political here. But there it is. There's the balance. Dr. Marty, I also want for people to know about, we're going to hear from you again later on tonight, but it's so exciting what you're doing. Dr. Marty is doing a show for the United Nations in New York on March 14th. And you know what's amazing? That's going to be
Actually, March 15th.
March 15th. I was looking at 4 p.m. on March 15th. And it is not a man's world. It is a Dr. Marty world. Dr. Marty, tell us about that show.
Well, this is a show where I actually I play 7 characters in my own family, from my great-great-grandmother, who was born in 1870, exactly 101 years before me. I played my great-grandmother, born in 1910, grandmother 1933, mother 1951, brother 1968, myself 1971, and my daughter 1991. And it just basically shows how trauma is transferable, and so is healing. There was something that happened in my family. I don't want to give away the story, that was very powerful, and it shook up my entire family. And it happened to my brother because he did not have a strong mentor or male figure in the home to basically lead and guide him on a daily basis, where I had those strong individuals with those powerful women. However, as my brother had fallen, it was the love and the healing and the grounding and the spirituality that we grew up with that helped him to stand strong again. And just because you fall doesn't mean you can't get back up. And I will jump to tell you the end of the story. My brother today, his daughter, my only niece, is a trauma emergency room doctor. So don't you worry about what this chapter is, how it's reading in your life right now. Know that you have to go ahead and make it all the way to the end of your story. And that is the legacy that you will leave. And so I'm just excited to be able to show others that healing is possible, no matter how deep the trauma is. And the last thing I want to leave you with, because I don't want to leave you with a heavy heart, I want to show you what spiritual activism looks like. Here's my little symbol of spiritual activism. A little Okay, those have to go together. Put your peace sign with your fist up in the air. Everybody, come on. Peace sign, fist in the air. Hey, I said peace sign and fist in the air. Yeah, hey, that's it. That's spiritual activism. So the next time you need to do that, you put that peace sign up in the fist in the air, and they say, what are you doing? You let them know, I'm doing some spiritual activism, just like Scott Katamas told us we could do. All right, love you guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Dr. Marty. And we'll hear more from her. I'm going to read a couple of comments that came in. Tiara writes, Dr. Marty K, thank you for sharing that precious experience. Now I really understand the broad, strong shoulders upon which all relies. And Dr. Laura wants a copy of those finger cots. One last thing I'll read from Dr. Laura. She says, Marty, dear sweetheart, I'm not sure it will ever be 100% fixed. There are always folks who are lost, ignorant, and angry. But I think there has been a lot of enlightenment over the decades, a lot of waking up, but not 100% fixed. Thank you so much for your dedication. Thank you. Well, that's quite an amazing start. And thank goodness we've got 4 other extraordinary women, all of whom are powerful speakers in their own right. And I'm going to go to Hallelujah Anasuya next. If I can find her. There she is. Hello, Hallelujah. Need you to, there we go.
Hello. Thank you for having me here tonight with my sisters. Okay, let me just start off saying, Woosa, Dr. Marty K. Casey. Thank you. Thank you for just dropping the mic, like really setting the stage on fire so that you have blazed a trail for us to walk in grace and joy with. Such a powerful demonstration of spiritual activism just in the share. Like, how blessed are we? We are so blessed. And I'm very grateful that Mother God and her illustrious husband chose me to send you to, or chose me to send to you. I'm so grateful. They know how matchmaking works. Okay. So John Lewis, he is one of my all-time heroes, and I've got plenty. I'm very grateful that our people, through all that we have survived for the last 500 years, have created some amazing, in the original definition of the word, not as it's cheapened, like phenomenal work for humanity. And so I'm very grateful for John Lewis and for Ron Dellums and for Maya Angelou and James Baldwin and for the millions who took the risk of being killed, of being martyred, of being lynched, or any other way silenced, like Medgar Evers, like Malcolm, like Martin, like Fannie Lou Hamer. So many of them risked being truth tellers, being activists, being spiritual activists in every kind of way, and took the risk of doing it out loud, in public, in front, and asking others to follow, knowing that they could be killed, and most were. But thank God, not all. Thank God, not all. I thank God, not all. Whew. Some hallelujah, Anasuya. The services that are offered to humanity are under the auspices of Mystic Midwife. I support each and every one of us in rebirthing ourselves in our own image, renaming ourselves as we call ourselves into being and have been called into being, of starting anew, able to leave that which we came in the first time with and pick up what we think or know we need to start anew and rebirth ourselves. Because what's happening right now, we have been plunged into a darkness that none of us alive have ever seen. Even the people who lived through Jim Crow have not seen a king rule, a dictator rule, someone who has thrown away every law, every rule, every sense of decorum. None of us have ever seen this before. So we are in what has been called an age of darkness, where it's never been seen before. We don't know. Darkness has been taught us to be scary and something to fear. So these are troubling times. People call it apocalyptic times. And all of that is right based on how we were taught about darkness. We are definitely plunged into the unknown. We are definitely down in the cracks. Deep down in cracks. And not that many of us have the billions needed to come out of it in a helicopter or a jet or a spaceship. And I'm in my spiritual activism as a mystic, as an artist, as a poet and writer, as someone who is a daughter of a civil rights activist who, when she graduated from law school after following behind Justice Thurgood Marshall, went to work at the State Department. First she went to work at the Department of Justice. She was one of the hundreds of Black lawyers who were actually hired for the first time. They'd never seen them, and who were there to enforce Brown versus Board of Education. Because people think the law got passed and everybody was hunky-dory and happy, like, yay, we're going to enter school. No, lawyers had to go to each town and enforce the law, because states were like, well, we ain't going to pass that. We're not going to do that. We don't have to. And each lawyer went at the risk of their own lives. That's how much people did not want to integrate schools. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures of young people. They might have looked like adults, but they were 16 and 17, 18, integrating high schools. And I don't know if you've seen the crowds of white kids and their parents screaming at them, taunting at them, pushing at them, hitting them as they tried to get into school every day. I don't know if you've seen that, but it was no cakewalk for them to show up every day knowing that that could be the day they get killed, trying to go to school. So enforcing Brown versus Board of Education was no small feat. And there was resistance every step of the way on every level: federal, state, city, village, opposition. But it had to be done. it had to be done, and the risk had to be taken. And I'm so grateful my mother took the risk, even though she had 2 small kids at home. Took the risk every day. We would see her on the weekends because she'd be gone to some state to the next. And I'm so grateful that every Friday she came home. Because that, my friends, was a miracle. And I'm so grateful. I didn't know how dangerous it was. This must have been when I was 6, 7, 8. No, it wasn't. 9, 10, 11. I had an idea, but I somehow thought, oh, all the violence against Black people was in the past. Now it's all good. Yeah, I know better now. So my activism is involved in supporting us to reclaim our sovereignty, reclaim our place, reclaim who we are. And a lot of times that takes rewombing. It takes us rewombing ourselves because our parents did the best they could and they fell short, but we know better now. So we can put in the things they didn't and rewomb ourselves and rebirth ourselves in our own image, which is divine, which is in sync with divine will, which is courageous and able to step out and speak up and speak up and step out and keep going, no matter the risk. And let me tell you, in this age of in this age of chaos and confusion and dictatorship, we don't know. But darkness isn't the problem. Mystery isn't the problem. Being afraid of the dark is the problem. Being afraid to go there and be in the uncomfortable position of not knowing. We have got to be willing to sit uncomfortably and not know what's going on, not know how to fix it, but sit still until spirit tells you what's your next step. It may not be the 50 steps you got to take, it may not even be the 1,000 steps you have to take, but be still and listen for the next right step. And each time we listen, we will be given the one after and the one after. Because we cannot use our rational minds, we can't use our history, we can't use anything we know to be the solution. It is not there. There's nowhere in the past because this never existed before. We have to be willing to not know, to be in the dark womb and ask for Creator to rewomb us in their image in a way that's right for this time, for such a time as this. Because no, child, we have not been here before, but we are here. We chose to be here at such a time as this. So we have the education, the experience, the wisdom, the heartache, the heartbreak, the sadness. We have everything we need to reconfigure into what's needed. So we might be nymphs right now swimming in the water, and we might turn into eggs on land, and we might turn into the dragonfly. But right now, we're in that egg of not knowing. Because when they're in the egg, they don't know they will be dragonflies, just like butterflies don't. Caterpillars don't know they're going to be butterflies. That we're in that not knowing. But our imaginal cells given to us by the divine, our Mother, Father, God, the imaginal cells know what has been put in them and the call on their life. And all they need for us is to listen and get out the way, because they will wake up our purpose. They will wake up our stand. They will wake up what's there for us to do. And all we have to do is have the courage to follow. We're in the goop right now, because when they're in the imaginal cell, when the imaginal cells wake up, there is no body anymore. There's just goop. There's goo. We have to be in the uncomfortable not knowing of the goo to awaken, to have our imaginal cells awaken and say, it's time for me now. You're ready for me. I will reveal your purpose and your next steps. And they will. But we have to be willing to be in the dark unknown, the beautiful darkness where seeds grow, where life is, the womb is, where the ocean is, the cosmos. Everything that gives life is in the dark. So embrace it with your spiritual activism. Embrace it, because spirituality is the mystery, honey. Ain't nothing about faith known. If it was, it wouldn't be faith. The spirit world is in the dark. It's mystery. Hang out there. That's home. Rewomb, and let's go.
So yeah, I want to come in for a couple of moments and riff with you. I just had heard from Pam, who's in our audience tonight, a wonderful quote. Are we in the tomb or are we in the womb?
Of course, it's both.
And it is both.
It is both.
You know, what's interesting about the caterpillar to butterfly analogy, a couple things. Caterpillar eats way too much. It literally eats itself to death.
Mhm.
Very similar to our lack of sustainability as the human race right now. We are eating ourselves to death. We're eating too much, consuming too much. But then as it dies, there's this soup, it turns into this kind of goo, and the imaginal cells find each other. And they find each other and they coalesce. Oh, there's imaginal cell, hallelujah. There's imaginal cell, Rhetta and Erica and Omashar and Christine and Ayada. You know, and we're all imaginal cells, and there are millions of us around the world finding each other to come together, coalesce, and create the new paradigm, to create the butterfly.
Yes. And it is needed because we are needed. We
Absolutely.
are needed for such a time as this. And I'm going to read a quote from Toni Morrison that I forgot, but I remember now. Because, you know, spiritual activism is for everybody, but especially us artists. And she says, in the time, these times that even she didn't see yet, these times, she says, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations heal. So we are the medicine. We are the medicine. We are that balm in Gilead. We just have to get out the way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Hallelujah, Anasuya. And we'll come back and hear more from you a little bit later. I've put into the chat box, she provides a lot. Anasuya has so much that she needs a link tree to get there. So again, if you go to her link tree, for you watching on Facebook and YouTube, and welcome everybody watching on Facebook and YouTube. We love having you with us. Just go to Linktree, that's linktr.ee/hallelujah, Anasuya. And she spells that Anasuya. Hallelujah, Anasuya. And we
All one word.
all one word. And we love you so much. See you in a little while. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think we're going to go to She of Many Names, Dr. Mama Ivy, Reverend Shadiah, the sound bath, the sound bath woman. And I'm so grateful to have you with us, Dr. Mama Ivy, Reverend Shadiah. Always you bring so much beauty and so much color. Always you've got these beautiful color backgrounds, your music, your tones, and most of all, your wisdom. And you're a spiritual activist, and you do it in so many ways, through your music, through your sound bath, through your words and your actions. So I'm eager to hear what you have to share, and you're welcome, if you feel so called, if you wish to do anything tonal, you are welcome to do that as well. I trust at all times and always.
Thank you, Scott. You know, it's always a pleasure to have an opportunity to come into this space, to come into this energy. It's a calling where we get an opportunity to join our tribe, our spiritual life tribe. And when you sent me the information about the spiritual activism, it came to me how powerful that concept is, because that is what we're doing, and that is what we need, because spiritual activism is not about religion. And so many of us are very stuck in the dogma of a religious ideology that keeps us from acknowledging, accessing, and benefiting from the spirit, that's that spiritual knowing, that spiritual activism for me that comes from within. And I thought about it as we were sitting here listening to everyone. Where did my spiritual activism start? And I think it started way before I even knew what spirituality was. As a child, when my great grandmother used to take care of me, we would go to visit her in what we call the country down in Virginia, where they grew their own food. They had their own animals. They had a well. We had an outhouse. All of that was like a beginning of my spiritual activism, because my great grandmother used to put her hands on me. And I think I was a child with a lot of energy, and sometimes she would just sit me down and put her hands on my back and just scratch my scalp with her fingernails. And it felt so comforting to me. She would brush my hair, and I realized what she was doing. And I didn't realize it until I became an adult, that she was transferring healing energy from her hands into my crown. And my whole life, I felt that. I felt that energy inside of me. I felt her hands. I felt her presence. And as she was doing this, she would always talk to herself. And she would always have what I thought she was talking to herself. But she was praying. And she was channeling. And I believe that was the beginning. That was the first sign of my spiritual activism. The second one, from that moment on, as I became older, I was about 9 years old, I became very fascinated by the light. And I always believed that I could touch the light. I always believed that I could put it in my hands. And I always believed that I could tell the light, what to do if I used my heart. And this is something that I believe that my great grandmother taught me, how to transfer energy from my hands and from my thoughts. And this followed me my entire childhood and then into my young adulthood as I was matriculating at Atlanta University in Atlanta, Georgia. I began a quest around this concept of spirituality versus religion. And in that quest, which I learned very early on not to question God, but at the time I said, okay, if you are real, then reveal yourself to me. And I used to be a runner. I used to run track as a child all the way through my early adulthood years. And so I went jogging and I ran, and something hit me in my head right here. And I laid down, and it felt like a transformation or a transmission of energy into my third eye. And that is when I began to realize that there's an energy outside of ourselves, more than what my religious practice and belief had taught me. But I saw that connection from what my great grandmother used to share with me. And then I learned that it was those rhythmic vibrations that our ancestors used to spiritually access the universe, to spiritually access the presence and the mind of God. And so my work is really all about using sound, healing, vibrational frequencies to access the spiritual world. It is a soul language. So for me, my spiritual activism is about sparking the memory of the soul of each and every soul of humanity to remind them of the connection that they have with the divine. It's learning to use the heart and not the mind. And that goes back to what I heard earlier about faith and trust. And can we create that among ourselves? spiritual activism for me is being able to acknowledge compassion, synergy, and work together. Even though for me, sometimes it's a challenge working with large groups, but we have to find out how to do that because we're in the pursuit of service with integrity and honesty. It's a strong, strong calling that comes from within. But as a person that has been given that spiritual activism or spiritual activist responsibility, most of all, I am open to receive with my heart and then my mind. Let's just slowly close your eyes for a moment. And if you can feel this vibration, take it in and feel your connection with the divine to activate, activate, activate. When we remember, we would have brought the world back into its order as we believe and feel that it should be. But the Creator has the idea, like the darkness that Sister Anasuya was just speaking of. You can't get to the light without going through the darkness. And so this is what we're doing. And I want to thank you, Scott, for giving this opportunity to share these stories, which I'm not even sure if I've ever shared that full story before. So thank you.
It's so fascinating to learn more about each and every one of you. You know, the stories that are being shared tonight are really, you know, I've been admiring all of you for so long, and you know, getting to know each of you through the shows or times that we're together in the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, and it's really wonderful. I want to read a couple of the comments that have come in, because people are really getting very, very touched. Karen S. writes, "This sounds like my grandmother's house on a farm in Virginia." So isn't that beautiful? And learning how you were first touched and you learned about vibration. God bless your ancestors. God bless all of our ancestors. Here are writes, "Dr. Ivy, you are magical, magical majesty." And Dia Therese writes, "Wow, the light in your hand activated by your heart. It doesn't get more profound than that. Thank you so much." And Tiara writes, "Scott, please schedule part 3 before our full sisters leave tonight." Well, we actually have done that. We're going to carry this theme of spiritual activism on 2 weeks from tonight, March 15th, where we celebrate Anasuya and do some fundraising for her. So yes, we're going to carry this on. Absolutely. And Reverend Jeffrey Colebrook writes, "I love the flow. This is so very deep. Thank you, Dr. Ivy, for these reminders."
Thank you so much. And you know, something that I want to put out there, because we hear this so much, and I'm listening to my sisters share our experience as Black women here in America. I want you to know my great grandmother was a slave when she was a child. And these are the stories that she used to tell me while she was brushing my hair and touching me on my head. And it was something about that vibration that they understood that we needed to be able to sustain ourselves. And I'm just reconnecting with that.
Mm. You know, there's a spiritual practice that my wife and I were very involved in called Diksha, where that's what we do. There's in India this huge temple where there are 13 monks at all times, just in meditation, sending the vibration of peace out. And then we would be like radio transmitters tuning into that vibration, and then we would put our hands gently on another person's head, and we would have diksha parties where people would get together, and we would just really lift ourselves up by doing that, bringing that hands very gently on the head and bringing through the vibration.
Oh, yes, it's powerful.
It's very powerful, very, very powerful. Christy Michaels writes, my grandmother's house was also in Virginia. They had what they called a victory garden. However, as a young child visiting from Hawaii, I was shocked by the racism that I saw. Yeah, yeah. I want to remind everybody that Dr. Ivy's Sound Spa, amazing sound vibronics. We've done some beautiful segments in the past where she's played her beautiful music. She, of course, has created projects with Piper Dellums, who's going to be our next speaker. But to get her beautiful, beautiful music and sound vibronics, go to drivysoundspa.com. Dr. Dr. Ivy, I-V-Y, S-O-U-N-D, sound, spa, S-P-A.com. drivysoundspa.com. And there's so many beautiful things there. I listen to her music. You got to put on headphones, got to, if at all possible. And it just makes, it is, imagine Dr. Ivy's hands on your head gently, bringing through the vibration. That's what happens when you listen to her music through her sound spa. So,
Thank
Dr.
you, Scott. Thank you very much.
And we will come back to you in a little while. Thank you. Well, the hits just keep on coming. And I now get to bring on a woman I just love so much. She really is truly a soul sister. One of the highlights of my year last year was when I actually got to meet her in person for the very first time at Gary Malkin's going away party. And of course, I'm talking about our beloved soul sister, Piper Dellums. Welcome, Piper.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, you have to give me a moment because we are having a Holy Spirit, physical consciousness, ancestral awakening with each and every story that was just told. I cannot tell you the picture that has been painted. This right now, in this very moment, two things have come up for me: incarnation and revelation. And I now understand and am witnessing why Dr. Marty K. Casey, hallelujah, Anasuya, my sister, Dr. Ivy, and Reverend Rhetta, why we have come together. It's all based on what was just spoken. So if you'll give me a moment so I can get through. So Dr. Marty Casey, you spoke about our brother John leaning on you, putting his hand on you and saying, run, sister, handing you the baton. You wait until I share with you. Dr. Ivy said, grandmother's hand on her head, passing spiritually through this awakening, this consciousness, this salvation, this wisdom, this third eye opening. Hallelujah spoke about the womb and the darkness and the birthing. I have to share this with you. So one of the things that my father said to me, and I'm going to wrap this quickly to Dr. Ivy, I'm going to go around this circle with our group. I don't know if you can bring back our sisters together, Scott, or whoever's running the camera. Just bring all of our sisters back because this is definitely part of this sister circle. He said to me, incarnation did not mean just that God became Jesus. This was the pushing away from religion into relationship. That God said yes to the physical world. God said yes to the universe, right? To the material universe. And in that incarnation, this understanding, if I could put it into words, it's like right now we're living in the mystery of incarnation. That's pretty much what's happening in this moment, that God is forever being birthed into the world. God is forever coming into the world, that we are the incarnation of that light, of that love, of that manifestation. So with what was just spoken. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Casey. When my father was dying, and as everyone knows, he was my very breath, my soul, my wisdom, my universe. He was who spoke to me that we're always waiting for matter to become a new form in which spirit is revealed and birthed. And right as he was passing, he laid his hand on my head, like your grandmother did, Dr. Ivy. Now you have to understand, my father had 4th stage liver, lung, kidney, and bone. So he could not move. But in the last moment, through the sunlight in one of his rooms, this light shone down over his body. And my father lifted his body up and laid his hand on my forehead and said the almost exact words that John said to you, Dr. Casey. My dad said, I am handing you my mantle. I am handing you my anointing. Run, run, baby girl. Run, because there's so much work to do, and I need you to do it in your way. Run. The same words that you just spoke. And the nurse that was standing in his home at the moment took a picture of him passing the mantle onto me and laying his hand on top of my forehead to send that vibration, that wisdom, that healing, that love. And it was the last moment taken between my father and I. And you all just shared those stories. And I was blown away, because I know that it is his presence, it is his wisdom, it is the wisdom of the ancestors passed down and through that have us here today. So in terms of spiritual revolution, spiritual activism, this, of course, has been a calling in the seed of humanity from the beginning of humanity. We are spiritual activism just in being a part of the universality of the universe, of the breath of life. Every aspect of our being is nothing more than spiritual activism. And our coming into the world, I've heard a number of people say, we have never seen anything like this before. We've never lived through this before, but we have. There's nothing new under the sun. Hold on. As Black women, we know at least what we know on this earth, what they found in terms of the Eve particle, is that the oldest Homo sapien bones ever found were female bones in Africa, the oldest. I believe what's first is last and what's last is first. If I were ever to speak something that is speaking to me from the biblical text into this now, and I believe that we as our ancestors, that the reason that we as Black women have been placed in the earth generation to generation, whether it was to be a wife, a mother, a queen, a princess, a wisdom keeper, as we were before we were torn out of our sacred land, probably the most beautiful earth in the world, where minerals are pouring through the red clay and diamonds and stones are pouring out of the earth itself. And every beautiful animal that you could ever imagine was a part of the kingdom for us to bear witness in harmony and rhythm with and towards. That was our balance. That is who we were. That is what God birthed us to be. And when we were coming into our stages of pulling into our adolescence, our rites of passage, just like the Maasai warrior, were to sit and stand on ascended places underneath the heavens, underneath the stars, with God and our ancestors, and stand in perfect rhythm on that one foot without moving, in harmony with nature and all that there was. And watch as the sun rose, and watch as the moon rose, and all of the animals, the lions, the kudu, the rhinoceri, the elephant, the zebra, were in balance, walking around us and moving into the water bodies without ever there being a fear, because we were in harmony and balance. That is who we were, and that is still who we are. And you can see where the seed of fear was placed inside of this ancient connection to all things. We were not hunters and gatherers for greed or for sport, but for food and for shelter and for tools. And there was a loving relationship. And we never put a thing in our bodies or placed a hide of an animal around our homes unless we blessed it and thanked it and gave it all of the grace back for the gifts that it provided. And when you see us now on these lands, where we were transported and dropped off all over the world. So suddenly we became, we're Brazil and the islands. But now people say, well, why we have this, Black people are afraid of water. They're afraid of dogs. They're afraid of there was a reason that we were forced to be afraid of that which was in harmony with us, which was our family and our humanity. If we're carried across on a boat with dead bodies by the millions piled on top of ours or being tossed over to the side, and 100 different languages that weren't our own from different tribes, and we recognize that that water is what was taking us from our freedom, from our breath, from our womb. And then dogs were sicked on us. Animals were chasing us, even in the attempt to become free. And even when it wasn't about a running away or a freedom, what happened in the Congo? What happened there under Leopold? If our men weren't working around the clock, he would chop off the hands and feet of the wives and the mothers and make the wives and make the men wear the hands and feet of their children and wives around their necks to say, keep on moving. 14 million Congolese murdered and slaughtered. 10 million mutilated. That was the greatest Holocaust ever known. And yet people think it's beautiful when we hear someone from the Congo speaking French. It's not beautiful. It's one of the most painful colonization things that have ever occurred, and no one has spoken about it. But why am I saying that this is still part of God forever coming into the world? What's first is last, what's last is first, is we have to recognize in the spiritual journey that we are on, when our souls chose this incarnation for the first or the 100th time, to come in as a Black woman, to come in as a woman who was raped 1 million times, whose children were ripped from our wombs and thrown into slave fields, or whipped from our wombs and hanging off of trees as some strange fruit, or ripped from our wombs and shot on the street while they're running with a pack of Skittles, or ripped from our wombs and thrown into prisons. This is a mirror. We are a river. We are a body to reflect to others what love is supposed to be. The awe and wonder of our oneness and our humanity. And oftentimes you need a mirror as a reflection so that your soul can bear witness to what it has to learn in order to be transcendent and to transcend into the new earth and into the heavenly realm. And if we chose to come in pain and in shadow and in murder and in rape and in oppression and also in greatness and beauty and brilliance and miracle, then it's because we're a mirror to those that have not truly seen us for who we are, the first, the oldest bone, your mother, your grandmother, and your great-great-great-great-grandmother. Because the reality is, from a womb that looked like mine, everyone who was watching this was birthed. And if we rape and torture our mother, then of course the earth mother is also going to be raped. If we don't love the physical mother, we won't love the spiritual mother, and we won't love the earth mother. So in the dark times that we're going through right now, this is the rebirthing. This is the time to wake up, to bear witness to who we and you and all of us are. So yes, it's dark, it's painful, it's horrible, but I've never been more in love with being a Black woman than I am right now. This to me is the most beautiful time of my life. Though they've taken my job, they've taken my health care, they've taken our leaders, they've taken everything they think they can take, but not my dignity, not my passion, and not my purpose. We are the butterfly. Everything comes out of blackness. Every color of the rainbow comes from the color black. Black is beautiful. And I am so excited to be here today to talk about the beauty of that, because in that knowing, everyone on this call is my child and my mother and my father and my brother and my sister and uncle and cousin, because we were all birthed from the same ancestral womb. So welcome all of you who have another name over yourselves. You are just as Black as I am. So stand up and recognize that our humanity is the only thing that matters in the earth, and how we choose to love Creator and all of creation in that oneness. So let's birth love. There's nothing else in the world. And that's what I had to say. Listening to you beautiful women remind me, wow. Wow.
I'm going to read a few of the comments from our audience, and then Dr. Ivy, Marty, hallelujah, Rhetta, you're all still in camera, and anything you wish to share. Karen S. writes, Shay Piper. Roger Tellefson writes, wow, this is so profound and moving. Pam writes, thank you, Piper, that was so powerful. Ayada writes, no words, just breathing all of this in. Christy Michaels writes, such a blessing, such passion, such love. Dr. Laura writes, the other day I was thinking of all the active volcanoes on Mother Earth right now. And I thought, of course, Mother Earth has to burp up some deep, dark energy because of all that has occurred on her back through the history of humanity, all that darkness that has seeped into the earth and must be cleansed. And finally, Carol Craig writes, I'm so privileged to have my spiritual path cross with yours. And by divine providence, I was fortunate enough to marry my Black husband and to still be living in the family with him in Trinidad. Love you, sisters. More comments. Dia Therese writes, Piper, my heart is thumping loudly with you, my sister. Grace Denise writes, your truth, your eloquence is a call to all of us. Infinite gratitude and thanks and love. And Susan Woolridge writes, chills and recognition. So that's just some of our Global Peace Tribe audience, and I'd love to open it up to our other presenters for anything they wish to share. Dr. Marty?
Yes, Scott, I just actually sent you another picture if you want to grab that and place this up, because to what Piper just said so eloquently, I would like to share a quick little poem from another one of our powerful sisters who have gone on, Sister Nikki Giovanni.
And there she is.
There she is.
Well, actually, you know what? I mean, I can do a better job this way. Hold on one second. Let me make the picture big, and then
I just want to sum up.
There we go.
Do a reference if all that Piper just shared, everyone. If you forget her words, please go back and find this poem for Nikki Giovanni, and it will bring you back to this very moment and space and understanding of everything that Piper just spoke.
Oh, I know it's ego tripping.
Embrace the change, no matter what it is. Once you do, you can learn about the new world you're in and take advantage of it. We love because it's the only true adventure. Mistakes are a fact of life. I want you to know love. It's the only true adventure. And what has happened here in our world right now, some of us voted and it might have been a mistake. You might have voted in a very mistakeful type way. But I want you to know It's a fact of life.
That's
We
right.
got to still live through this moment. We're going to accept that change and we're going to keep moving. And if we move on the journey of love, we're going to get to peace on earth. Are you coming with us? Come on.
All the way.
Thank you, Piper.
I love you, Marty. You know, you just reminded me. I was hoping you were going to read it. I love your voice. You know, Maya Angelou's "And Still We Rise."
Oh,
For some reason, I feel like that's the
you know,
poem.
honey,
There
listen.
she is.
I don't care who y'all mention tonight. I'm gonna have something.
And there you
have
have it.
something to
I
show
can't
you. It don't
believe
matter
that.
who we mention.
Put
I
that-
And
can't
Marty,
believe
you
that.
must have a little a treasure cove up underneath your desk. Everywhere you, every time you do, everything, you got it all right there, right there in front of you.
I can't believe it's right there.
right here, Dr. Ivy. But no, let me tell you what's underneath my desk. Believe it or not, I have a foot massager because I sit on Zoom so much, and I sit here and I massage my feet. That's what's under my desk, baby. But everything else is all around it. Name them. I'm gonna pull the picture up, show you something.
This
That's
is what I
awesome.
wanted to share with you, but I just want to hear Marty do that poem. So, and I think I've shared this before with some of our beautiful family, but it was the last moment that Nelson Mandela had in Shushunguve in Pretoria with his grandson. And I know a lot of us lived in South Africa, and so we've talked about that. But it's sort of about this coming back to innocence. And then I forgot to tell you the little thing on Revelation that came because I got carried away and emotional, which I shouldn't have done. But when you have to imagine, and this is all resilience. This is the resilience of our people, that he was in this prison for that long. And all we think about is how small it was. But let's talk about the daily beatings. Let's talk about the tiring that were happening to his family. And, this is putting tires on top of children's bodies and setting them on fire so that the tires melt slowly into the body, the most painful death that you can imagine. That's how the children in South Africa were being killed. And all of the beautiful diamonds that everybody was wearing at the time. I was living there when they were strapping 6 and 7-year-olds' bodies with dynamite so they could climb through those diamond mines. They blew up our children in order to get to those diamonds, which is the real reason that they're called blood diamonds. But even through that, Nelson Mandela Madiba sat inside of Shushunguve, facing a window on a really rainy day in South Africa. And the thing that I love about envisioning that is that I think that the rain was probably mimicking his tears. And Madiba's a lot like my dad, and I knew Madiba, obviously. We were working so closely together with our family. But he was a man that would drop a seed of wisdom, like these ladies this evening, and so many, drop a seed, and you just wanted to sit at his feet, this great oak tree just pouring out. But he was silent on this day. He was silent on this day, and he was just crying with his office chair facing the rain hitting the glass. And what did he say after 28 years, imprisonment, beatings, death, all of the torture? He looked out of the window and he said, "When I was a little boy, I used to love to run naked in the rain. I think you should do that." What is powerful about that is this shows our souls and our spirits through everything to have a restoration back to innocence, to nakedness, to freedom, and to the cleansing and purification of the rain. It allows you to know how his spirit came back around, to see that's the ancient God in him. He didn't look out and curse the nations. He didn't look out and go, "What a painful life." He didn't look out and say, "Why did this happen?" He went back to that innocence and was like, "I used to run naked in the rain." So this is to all of us that are going through all of this. Run, be naked, be free. Allow the innocence of what has been taken to be restored, because what is going on in this world is only going to define us for a moment. We are ancient spirits and ancient souls, and we are only here to be mirrors for those who are blind, to bear witness to our bleeding and our crying and our mourning and the death of our children, so they wake up back to love. And we chose to say, here am I, send me. I will go for that. I will go and be your spiritual punching bag if it awakens you to your own humanity. Send me. Send me Black, send me female. I'll do it for the souls of humanity. So that's something I just had to share with you.
Thank you so much, beloved Piper. Thank you. We're going to hear more from Piper, and we're going to actually watch a video shortly with her beautiful father, the great Ron Dellums. But Piper, you can find all things Piper at her website. It's her name, piperdellums.com. Piper Dellums, Dellums.com. And I love this quote from Piper: "We hold the key to do more than just let it be. The key to our destiny is in the hearts of humanity. Love is the greatest philosophy. It's up to you to set seasons of creation free." Absolutely, Piper. Love you so much. Thank you. I'm going to bring Reverend Rhetta up. She led that beautiful prayer to start us off, but we haven't heard her ruminations yet about spiritual activism. And then we're going to have a special treat as Reverend Rhetta and Omashar are going to combine their talents together. Reverend Rhetta, welcome back, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the first thing I got to do is, woo! My God, today. As my grandma used to say, my God, today. Woo! I mean to tell you, I have gone to church 4 or 5 times and more. Oh my, oh my, oh my. What a time. What a time. What a time tonight. What a time we're in. Whew. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sisters. Thank you. My goodness. My heart, it feels really full. Yeah, just give me a second, if you will.
Absolutely. Take your time, Reverend Rhetta.
Maybe you will want to even join me, taking a couple deep breaths together.
Go to gallery view.
Yeah, take a second to just see who's here, those who are able to be on camera. Yeah. Wow. Wow. From my view sitting here, humanity is sparkling. Right? We got to be uplifted by beauty and horror, right? We've got to get to hold the arc of what is just real. It is miraculous, it is terrible, it is prophetic and glorious, it is disgusting. Like the whole arc, we got to be present to and with. And what I see and what I feel is the spark, the foreverness that we are, to be present with each other and listen with our hearts, and to stay in it, right? And to stay in it together. There's something powerful about community, about being gathered. So that which feels unbearable alone, together we can kind of hold and lean on and into each other's energy. And so I'm just really appreciating that. So I want to share just a little bit about my background. I am an interfaith minister. I'm an interfaith minister because when I was in college, I was a Bible thumping Christian, younger, loved Christ, still do. But when I went to college, I got exposed to many different kinds of spiritual traditions. And everywhere I went where people were seeking God or seeking something transcendent, I would feel immediately at home. Like I wouldn't have to understand the language, but there's an earnest desire to connect with each other and to the divine. I felt like, oh, I belong here. This is my home. So I'm an interfaith minister because I love every kind of God, every kind of way. and and so from that work, my primary work in the world right now is with young activists. I have a group that has been meeting every Tuesday for about 5 years now. It started because so many of the activists, particularly young activists, and that's across different kinds of activism, were just exhausted, so much grief, working so hard for change, and really distraught about not being able to see the effect of the great amount of work they were putting in. And I started this group called Fortify because I noticed that many of them had sort of given up on the spiritual tradition that they came from. And so it felt evident to me, it emerged that's my calling to be support, to ask the kinds of questions, to get them thinking about spirituality and how they can have a relationship with something bigger than oneself, whether it's a question of going back to a path, to find a new path, or to create a personal relationship with spirituality or religion. Like that is a deep passion of mine. So I get to do that to this day with a group of activists that attend. There's several activists that are doing amazing work on the national and international stage that I get to be elder and mentor for. I feel like that is a lot of my work right now, holding space for people who are holding space and actively you know, engaging in helping to support folks to keep liberation and justice centered, and many of them are involved directly with strategies. What do we try now? Now everybody is bewildered because, as many people said, we are in a place where we have seen things similar to these times, but there's a configuration here now that I don't think we've actually seen before or experienced before. But there are those who are working, brilliant minds and hearts at work, and it is my honor to support many of those folks. So that work and the grief work that I spoke of, for those of you who were here for our first session, are my two passions. I believe to be present to our grief is a deep act of resistance, and also the doorway, the portal to our joy, so that is kind of the work I do. And so I want to speak a little bit from the lens that I have been working from. But how I want to set that up is to talk a little bit about my dedication to love as the center of my own ministry. We've spoken about, I think each of us have spoken to some degree about love. I often speak when I'm asked to preach or to share about my own experience of redefining love, right? Often when we hear about love, I would imagine we have different relationships, like what that actually means. A dictionary says there's over 20 different definitions, different kinds of love, right? And so each of us will have our own connection to what that is. I like to talk about redefining love And I'd be curious if we had time, like maybe people can even drop in the chat if you feel called, like what comes to your mind and heart when when people are talking about love? What does that actually mean for you? So I have been working with this idea of redefining love to the impulse that moves planets, that directs galaxies, right? To define love as that which grows the baby from the seed and the sperm, from the womb, that impulse that grows that baby from this tiny thing into a person with, all the miraculous circuitry that it takes to be alive, right? From nothingness into, you know, us sitting here together, like the impulse that moves that as love. I want to think of the seed in the ground, that which grows it to the surface, that pushes it out of the dirt, through the crowns from the dirt, and moves it out and gives it the impulse to move toward the sun. Like that, I want to define that as love, right? Because if I can live in that definition, I can stand before anything, right? And listen from this place of love, will you please direct me? And that kind of the love that moves the galaxies, not the hallmark, warm, let's sit and sing kumbaya. You sing kumbaya together, which there's nothing wrong with kumbaya. I love that song. But the kind of love that directs worlds, right? The impulse for that. If I can define, when I'm thinking of love, so when we think about loving our neighbor, right? And our neighbor is doing harmful things, what does that actually mean? What is there to do, right? And that's different for different people. It's different from, there's a story, one of my beloved activists, George Lakey, the Quaker activist, told me about a couple fighting in front of his home, right? And it was very tricky because George Lakey is a white Quaker, and these are two black people, physically, a man and a woman fighting, right? He says, well, this is tricky because I can't intervene as a white person, but what am I going to do? And he stood on his porch and he watched these people and he said to them, I see you, right? And he said it, and it just stood on this principle. And I'd like to believe is this kind of love, this impulse to move worlds kind of love. See, because he didn't have to come down there and do anything but say, I see you. And they turned to him, and both of them looked at him and said, yeah, we see that you can see, and we're gonna stop. Now listen, that doesn't always happen, right? It doesn't always happen, but it was such a powerful story that his presence was the thing that caused that violence to be interrupted in that moment. And he had to figure out how to do that and not try to wave the white card in that moment. He had to figure out how. So I think, and I think every sister alluded to, we have within us this incredible power. It is our birthright. It is in the DNA of who we are. If we believe we are of the transcendent, we are from the divine, that foreverness breathes in our cells, right? And so what I have found in terms of spiritual activism, where it starts is just showing up, being present, in the conviction of that kind of bold love that moves planets. Because I think what happens is we show up and we have to deal with our fear. Of course we are afraid. How could we not be? The level of things that are going on. We have to deal with our grief. We have to deal with our anger. We have to be present with those parts of ourselves. And when we can be honest and authentic in our relationship with those pieces, I believe it always brings us back to love. I believe that, right? And so when we stand in the world with all the things happening like they are right now, we might not know in this moment the next thing to do, but something in us does know. We might not know yet what action to take, but that which moves galaxies has an idea that we might not have, right? So if we are planted, and this is to me, this is the spiritual activism. This is the root of the spiritual activism. What kind of spiritual practices are we doing? What are we asking of our spiritual practices in this time? How are we studying and learning about the stories that come down from each of our lineages? Each of us on this call come from people who have been through a lot, right? What are the stories in your lineage? What the spiritual practices, how people made it through challenges they didn't think they could make it through. We need to gather together our resources so we can lean in and on them. This is how we create the spiritual activism that is alive and vibrant, and that we can draw on in times like these. One of the things I'm doing right now is teaching an 8-month class on grief tending and facilitation. And the first assignment that I gave was for the students to write a list of what they know. What do you know for certain about grief work? So they're going to do some work with me to learn from me how I facilitate grief. And how I facilitate grief is similar to the story I just told about George Lakey. What I believe is spiritual activism as a core is the presence. It is who we are at the core and how we show up, right? So these students, I'm going to have them write all the things they already know about tending grief. And I want their studies to be anchored in what they know, not what they don't know. Right? And that's tricky because this generation, they're allergic to certainty in some kinds of ways, right? I love them. I say that in great love. I love them, right? But there's some wisdom to that. There's some wisdom to that because when we're too haughty about our knowing, we get in trouble, right? So there's some wisdom when it's based in humility, right? So each of us have got to find the balance, right? For the students, it is my desire, my heart's desire to support them, to walk in a little bit more certainty about the things they do know and to continue to have humility about the things they don't. I believe in love. I believe in love with every cell in my body. I have seen it. And I believe, because I believe in it, I look for it and it shows up. Even in the midst of these really, really challenging times, I believe it's possible to lead from there. Now, it's not the only way to lead. I'm just sharing my experience. And so I would say to each of you, what are you anchored in? Where is your anchor? The spiritual activism, I think, starts with relationship to spirit. And then to take the actions that you are called to take from your relationship, your connection to the divine, to spirit, to that which is greater than ourselves, greater than our humanity. Like, how are we connected? How are we tethered? And what does that connection direct you to do? I think the last thing I want to say is about, I think that spirit often invites us into a stretch, right? And there's a way in which I see these times as inviting each of us to stretch. So if the thing we think we're supposed to do is in our comfort zone, I don't know. I would challenge you. I would challenge you at the minimum to be on your edge, right? To be on your edge. I think spirit is pulling. I know my ancestors are. It's kind of pulling you along. Come on now, come on. Let's get in there. And what you think it is, let's see. Can you reach a little further, right? For your grandbabies? Can you reach a little bit further for the community, for them young people that show up at 4 to 5 every Tuesday night? Can you reach a little bit further for the folks in that grief tending class, right? What is it that you can call into this moment? And to have in the old church, they just talk about, we are the hands of God, we are the feet of God. They used to talk about how whatever the divine can do, it gets done through us, right? How can I stretch and take an action that I used to be nervous about? I think the times are inviting all of us into those kinds of questions in terms of spiritual activism. So I believe we are spiritually, as one of my sisters spoke to, we are spiritual activists, just being infused with the breath and light of God. We are already that. Somebody says we are spiritual beings having a human experience, right? Somebody said that, right? So we are already spiritual. And so the spiritual activism is about acting from that base. I think it's really that simple. And so I think I want to end there, that I pray that for all of us, that we are inspired by the depth of storytelling and heart that was shared on this call. And we leave this call passionately on fire to take an action anchored in spirit, centered in our tether to the divine, right? And that we stand in that, and to boldly go where no souls have gone yet, right? Boldly go forth in the name of that which moves galaxies, right? Take a galaxy worthy action. So I'm gonna stop there and move, I think, to the poem.
I want to read a few comments that have come in first. And I
Sure.
want people to know how they can find you. Her website is her name, Reverend, spelt out, Reverend Rhetta, RHETTA.com, ReverendRhetta.com. And so you can learn all about this extraordinary woman and the wonderful work that she's doing. And Reverend Rhetta, I think, I love the idea of when we're in that moment where it's like we don't know what to do. How do I call upon love? And to remember love, the love that moves the galaxies. May that love come through me right now as I make whatever choice I need to make. There's a lot of comments that I want to read. So give me a moment and then we're going to get to your poem. DR writes, deeply touched by the love that moves galaxies that you bring, Reverend Rhetta. Please, thank you, Reverend, for this great teaching. Connie and Andrew write, Reverend Rhetta is speaking the essence of spiritual activism, bold, committed action in alignment with our hearts and our divine instructions. Ayada writes, beautiful.
It's very nicely put. Yeah.
DR does beautiful work. She does spiritual diversity and education work, as long as the current government will allow her. Karen S is I'm going to bring Karen S up after the poem. She's going to share about her experiences. So it's going to be really, really exciting. Connie and Andrew also write, love with a capital L is the primordial force of the universe. Love with a small l is human love, kindness, empathy, compassion, generosity. The love of the universe is unconditional. It gives us everything we ask for. So what are our requests? Our consciousness, its vibration. It's our choice what we ask for. And she provides 7 aspects of our consciousness, and requests are awareness, assumptions, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing. They determine our frequency and thereby our reality. And Connie, that's what makes you a straight A student. So thank you so much. Last one. Erica writes, "We are the divine made manifest in human."
Mm. Beautifully, beautifully written. And thank you so much for those comments. And yeah, we're gonna head into the poem, and I hope that folks will consider and reflect on this business of that bold action, specifically in service to these times, right? There's many, many ways, directions we can go with that teaching in terms of what we can bring to ourselves, what we can actually manifest in general. And so I want to just reiterate this idea of, of bringing that idea in alignment with how you choose to take actions during this time so that we can actually be and embody where we want to go in this country, what we want this country to be. And so the poem that's coming up, it was written, it actually was the very first poem I wrote. It's about 5 years ago now. I was visiting a friend down in Chesapeake Bay. I was sitting on the bay and just looking out, and this poem poured out of me. After that, I think about 5 or 6 others did as well. It's the very first poem. The poem is a prayer, it's a declaration, and someone like it's been called a psalm, but it's definitely an affirmation. It is many things for me. Poem is just one title, and I am so grateful that Omashar is going to join me. Ancient walls fall through tears and fears and missed opportunities, melting one layer of catastrophe at a time. Ancient walling wails, falling and unwalling, cradled in a womb of wanting, turning down a tunnel toward life. Ancient walls fall, and I will never be the same. Will have to choose a new name, a name that moves like the wind, that bends and retains its shape, a name the universe hears and answers. Ancient walls fall. The beloved is now at hand. It had been my own fear, that wall, the magnitude of love that stands before me, the love that is me, is here, is now. Ancient walls fall into an unknowing future. Knowing has changed her address. She sits on a new hill, overlooking a horizon carved by the bones of healed scars, forged from the bonds she can now make. The ancient ones have danced the falling. Music unrestrained the notes. Time and gravity arranged an alchemical sequence. The wall is no more. The wall falls no more. No more falling and wailing from the wall that once was. There is no more falling and wailing from that wall that once was.
Really go to gallery view. That's love, appreciation, a beautiful poem, the beautiful wisdom of Reverend Rhetta, beautiful music and support from Homushar. What an evening. What an evening. Really something. And I'm actually going to bring up one of our great global peace drivers. She has been with us from the very, very first show. And I think she's almost always here. And I was reading in the chat box some of her extraordinary experiences. And so I've invited her to come on camera. And it's rare that we get to see Karen S. on camera. There she is. But Karen S., please share with us a little bit of what you were sharing in the chat box. And if you could move your camera down so we see more of you and less of the ceiling.
Well, let's see what I can do.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mentioned how I've been across that Edmund Pettus Bridge several times, and the first time I went down there, this was probably about 20 years ago. We were in a church that that was the headquarters for everything back during that time of the march. And I was sitting in an area by the choir stand, so I was able to look back into the audience. And John Lewis was sitting on the front row. And the entire service, he just started crying, and he just wept and wept the entire time. And it was just so touching to see how moved he was all these years later about even the outpouring of love that was being given to him and the people, that had gathered to march across that bridge. So I'm honored to have been able to make that trek across that bridge with him a few times. I did live in his, well, I do live in his district. He's not here anymore, but I've lived in his district off and on for the past 30 years. So I have, you know, I've had encounters with him over the years, and I've been fortunate enough since I moved here. I had a friend before I moved to Atlanta told me, she said, you've got to go there. You're not going for the reasons you think, but you've got people you've got to meet, things you have to do. And I realized one of the things the people I had to meet were some of these icons of the civil rights movement. I knew Coretta Scott King and many of the other people that you see about on the news, hear about on the news, and you know, in the clips from the past. But I know that was one of the reasons I had to get here. There were other things too, but and I got to meet Maya Angelou many years ago, back in the 80s. She came to do a presentation at the Opera House in Galveston, Texas, when I was living there. And so it was before she got really famous. I mean, people knew her, but I was able to even have a few minutes to talk to her, and I just will always cherish that moment in my life too. I was thinking about things that are going on now. I'm trying to stay out of the political thing, but I do recognize that, you know, the budget thing is coming up. So I would just, you know, advise people to maybe try to stock up on a few things, because we don't know how long things are going to be like they are. So that's just a little thing I just want to throw out there. We maybe have a couple of weeks here. We'll see. Pray that everything goes through, but just something I think people need to know. But I helped integrate a school. I may have mentioned this before, but I helped integrate a school in Louisiana back in the 60s. And it's like my whole life has been sort of a life of activism in certain ways. Not that I really was trying to as a young person to do that, but that's just the way my life worked out. But I started writing a song. Well, it started off as a song. I started writing it a few days ago. I mentioned this in the chat Wednesday night. And it has evolved into what's probably going to be a long form poem. I'm not quite ready to release it yet, but it's about these times and what I've been seeing and what maybe, you know, I'll probably present it to you also soon, very soon.
Well, I hope that we can preview that when you're ready on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for being one of our most beloved global peacemakers, and thank you for a life.
But I just wanted to say that yesterday, because I've been sort of hesitant to put it out there, but it was like I kept getting this message that you've got to use your voice to speak out on things. You know, don't just sit on all this stuff. And so I will be out there doing more and saying more, bringing it forth.
Thank you. Like Reverend Rhetta said, you know, we all have to stretch. What's our stretch? For the spiritual activism. Yeah. I'm going to read a few comments, and then we've got a really special something planned. Charlie writes, all need to continue to live in love. Dear Therese writes, I want the whole world to hear Omashar's flute and Reverend Rhetta's poem. Yes, the whole world needs to hear it and integrate it. DR writes, I love you, Karen. You've been through so much and witnessed so much. Dr. Laura writes, Reverend Rhetta and Omastar, that's what we like to call him, that was spectacular. Those words and flute felt like the wisdom of the ages coming through the veil of time from a wise woman who lived long, long, long ago. Ayada writes, this is Nelia writes, so lovely, Reverend Rhetta. What a gift to feel your presence again and be sent into the embrace of the great presence that always surrounds you. Don Drake writes, what an extraordinary blend of sacred words and music. Ayada writes, ancient walls fall. I feel that in my bones. And finally, Ayada writes, indeed, these prayers that the work of all you beautiful, powerful women do, please may you be protected and supported and also furthered by the divine. I saw one that just came in from Connie and Andrew. Henry David Thoreau, in the conclusion to Walden, writes, quote, I learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. He will put some things behind, will pass an invisible boundary. New, universal, and more liberal laws will begin to establish themselves around and within him. Old laws will be expanded and interpreted in his favor in a more liberal sense, and he will live with the license of a higher order of beings. Thank you for that. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to bring it up. You know, it's interesting that several of our presenters tonight talked about their grandmothers and their ancestors. And so we're going to now take the show into a moment to really appreciate our ancestors. I've been living in the San Francisco Bay Area since 1978, and so I was very familiar with Ron Dellums. He was truly one of the great political leaders, and you're going to see a video that starts with Amy Goodman speaking a little bit about his life. So we'll get a little history lesson from Amy, from, of course, of Democracy Now! And then we hear a speech from him. And the speech is all about what does it mean to be a champion of peace? What does it mean to be promoting and being a spiritual activist for peace? He doesn't use those exact words, but that's the essence of it. And we are the global peace tribe. We have come together. And so after we watch this, I'm going to ask each of our guests what their rumination is, either about their ancestors or about what we can do, what spiritual activism can we do to create peace in our world. And that's how we'll conclude our show. But it's now my pleasure to introduce all of you to the great Ron Dellums. Come on. There we go. Hang on a second. I did have it queued up. I really did. Here we go. Let's try that again. Come on. There we go.
Now, I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez as we remember the pioneering anti-war Congress member Ron Dellums. Also, the former mayor of Oakland went on to teach at Howard University. He died on Monday at the age of 82 of cancer at his home in Washington, D.C. We turn back to 2015 at a conference he attended in Washington, Vietnam, the Power of Protest. He was introduced by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez.
Ron Dellums is a legend in this country, in the progressive movement. I just want to remind you of one thing you may have forgotten. One of his first acts when he was sworn in as a U.S. representative was to take a small annex room to his office in the House of in his office in the House of Representatives and mount an exhibition of the atrocities committed by the United States in Vietnam as a freshman congressman. And he has continued to stand for social justice, labor rights, environmental rights. He is a true champion of our movement, Ron Dellums.
Sisters and brothers, I come from the Bay Area, Oakland, Berkeley. Unlike many other places in the country, virtually every movement of the 60s emerged in close proximity and great simultaneity. So unlike many other places, we were forced to sense each other's anger, to feel each other's rage, to listen to each other's analysis, to feel each other's passion, to listen to each other's music. And I maintain that out of that incredible cauldron of activism, a unique group of people emerged. So we had to hear each other. The civil rights movement, the nationalist movement, the Brown Berets, the Black Panthers, the Gray Panthers, all of the various movements. I remember in 1966, a young guy by the name of Bob Scheer, a journalist who ran against the person that I ultimately defeated 4 years later. I remember we used to come back from meetings where we would hear this young guy lay out an extraordinary analysis of why we should oppose the Vietnam War. We used to come back and say, man, that's a bad dude. White guy too, you know, wow. But in 1967, something magical happened. This brilliant, prophetic, articulate, eloquent minister mounted the podium, 1967, Riverside Church in New York, and laid out his reason for opposing the Vietnam War. It was courageous and historic. He laid out his moral opposition. He saw it as unjust, illegal, and immoral. When he stepped away from the pulpit, he was attacked by people in the civil rights movement by saying, Martin, stay in your lane, brother. You're a civil rights activist. Don't water down the movement. You're going to invite new enemies. You're going to detract from what we're doing. Stay in your lane. Whites attacked him essentially the same way by saying, Reverend Martin Luther King, stay in your lane. You're a civil rights leader. What do you know about foreign policy and national security and war and peace? Stay in your lane. So Martin Luther King begins to crisscross the country to answer his critics. He comes to Berkeley, California, Sproul Hall steps, University of California at Berkeley, crowded literally with thousands of people. A young black guy, Ron Dellums, standing way in the back of the several thousand people, hanging on every word. Didn't realize at that moment that my life would be changed forever. And I would comment on 4 points that he made in that speech and speeches going forward, challenging the war in Vietnam. First, he said, why did I stand up? His response was, I cannot segregate my moral concerns. That said to me that we must challenge all forms of injustice. Because Martin Luther King said we cannot segregate our moral concerns. Secondly, he said there are two kinds of leaders. One who waits until the consensus is formed and then runs swiftly to the front of the group and declare leadership. But then he said there's a second kind of leader who has the audacity and the courage to risk attempting to shape a new consensus. I interpreted that to mean we had carried the burden of racial, cultural, and economic oppression, but we did not have to carry the burden of ignorance. That we had the obligation, the right, and the responsibility to enter the arena and be educative, to educate our people, to help them to understand the interrelatedness, the interconnectedness, the relationships between and among all issues of oppression and injustice. One of his lessons of education was a statement that was so vivid. so powerful. We are dropping bombs in North Vietnam that are exploding in the ghettos and the barrios of America. How incredibly poetic, how incredibly powerful the vision. He was saying the relationship between the billions of dollars that are being spent to wage war and the inability to address the injustice that is taking place in the ghettos and the barrios of America. The issue of priorities. Very powerful. But to me, the most powerful statement that shaped my life forever was this comment. Peace is more than simply the absence of war, it is the presence of justice. I interpreted that to mean, wow, the peace movement is the ultimate movement. Peace is the superior idea that the umbrella movement of all movements, the peace movement, because to come together under the banner of peace forces us to challenge all forms of injustice. I want you to consider this point. I don't make it in criticism, I make it simply as a matter that we must reflect upon, because I've come to this moment many times. Suppose everyone, because I believe that the movement to end the war in Vietnam ultimately became the largest and most powerful movement in the country. But when the war in Vietnam ended, many of the people went home and left us to fight racism, poverty, hunger, disease, homelessness, helplessness. They went home. And my great lament in my life has been, what would have happened in this country and in this world if people had heard Martin Luther King and said, now that we've ended the war in Vietnam, let's get on with dealing with other forms of injustice. What would the world look like? Pat Schroeder will recall, I tried to, on the floor of Congress, to tweak that comment just a little so my colleagues could understand it. I didn't mean it quite that way, I'm sorry about that. Peace is more than simply the absence of war, it is the absence of conditions that give rise to war. Okay? So that if we stay together, what would the international community look like? What would the world look like globally? What would America look like? Would we still be seeing the Baltimores if we had challenged on these issues? But it's not too late. In my final remarks, I have 1 minute. I may go slightly a few seconds over, but young people have asked me, what is the difference between your generation when you are our age and our generation? I won't give you my total answer because I think it's a good question, but I'll deal with two. Martin Luther King told us to raise our voices in the name of peace and justice and equality and peace because it was the right thing, the moral thing, the ethical thing, the principal thing to do. This generation must do it because it's now the only thing to do. It has now become the imperative. So what was principle for our generation now is the imperative for this generation. Because we know that the price of war is too high. We know that the price of neglect of the issues that affect the human condition, we do it at our peril. So that we have a responsibility now to address the imperative. A second difference is Martin Luther King never told us we couldn't do it. He said, go out and change the world. Remember, he said, I may not be with you at the end, but I have reached the mountaintop, and I can tell you this, we will achieve. So we felt that we could change the world, and we went out to change the world. But this generation is being told 24 hours a day, the system is broken, you can't fix it. The system is bought and paid for, you can't get it back. So how can people move to change the world when they are constantly being fed a diet of cynicism, of superficial political analysis rooted solely in partisan politics, or the shaping of personalities as if this individual or that individual can change the world all by themselves, without dealing with the substance of the problems of policies that have to be addressed, but we narrow it down to very parochial, shallow analysis. So what we have to say to this generation of young people, out of a sense of urgency, out of a sense of the imperative, you now must emerge. I've been doing some lecturing at Howard University with young people, and I'll tell you what I found out. Last point. It's not that this generation does not get it. It's that they don't always hear it. But when they do hear it, they get it because they listen carefully. And if I had to bet my last dollar, I would bet it on this generation of young people, because they're not carrying the same baggage we're carrying. And if they ever stand up, they will change America and change the world for their children and their children's children.
Former California Congressmember, chair of the House Armed Services Committee, former Oakland Mayor Ron Dellums, speaking in 2015. He died on Monday of cancer at the age of 82. And that does it for our show. Happy birthday, Jemiah Lewis, and happy graduation to our news fellow, Libby Rainey. I'm Amy Goodman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Amy Goodman. Wow. It's just I'm going to bring Piper up in a moment. But there's this theme tonight of the passing of the torch. Martin Luther King inspired young Ron Dellums, and Ron Dellums went on to become one of the great political leaders of his time. And then he put his hand on his daughter's head and passed the torch on to Piper. And, you know, some of us, a lot of us in this particular group are elders. I'm leading a mentorship group now for young leaders for an awakening world. So whatever age we're at, whatever level we're at, Reverend Rhetta talked about her students that she's working with. So I just want to acknowledge that the generations and the passing of the torch, and no matter what age we're at, what time, we still have to, like Reverend Rhetta said, we have to stretch and breathe. What can we do to expand? Anyway, we just saw the great Ron Dellums, and now we get to see his beautiful, wonderful daughter, Piper. I'm eager to hear what you have to share. And we need you to unmute, my dear.
Sorry. I'm just reminded of how much I miss sitting at the eloquent and fertile feet of that tree. He most definitely was the wisdom and the heart and the hope and the honor and the beauty and the excellence and the love and the gentleness of my life and of so many others. And my take on everything that he was speaking then is that we are sadly centered in that moment right now, and we are at the precipice of having to understand and make a decision about the necessity, and like he said, the imperative necessity of peace on the planet. There is an equal opportunity destroyer that will affect all of humanity, whether we are black, white, red, yellow, LGBTQ, poor, rich, and that is clearly our Earth Mother. The Mother Earth is the one thing in her destruction that will dissolve humanity as we know it. So the imperative to love and to come to peace as a body of humanity is the only way that we will be able to finally embrace all of the life-giving blessing that is our planet. I would say that listening to that, what I hear is that the awe and wonder is our birthright. It's our birthright. Love is our birthright. And we're all worthy of honor. We're all worthy of respect. We're all worthy of a home without fear. We're all worthy of a neighborhood full of embrace. We're worthy of compassion. We're worthy of the love of one another. And he's right. If we listen, if the seeds of listening truly are able to fall into the source of our beingness, then this world can truly change. And I don't think that we will know how to heal. I don't think that we will learn how to heal or how to love until we at least learn the skills here at ground zero. And what I mean by that is the individual human heart. This is our ground zero. This is the one place that we have to center and crack open and listen to and find our own authenticity, our own sense of self-worth, our own sense of justice, so that we can spread that seed and spread that love one to another. And in my final thought was, when I was watching that, I was reminded of a story that my dad told me. He was also a Marine, as you probably know. And he told me when they shaved off all of his hair and mustache to go into what do you call the training process for the military. And he had scored perfectly on all of the exams, so they put him immediately into fast-paced officer training. And that was all on the paperwork. But when he went in and took the test, he had already been shaven bald. And they finally sent him into, I'm going to call them bunkers, but I'm sure they were called something else, where you go to train and you live amongst the other servicemen. And he was the only man of color in that place, and they thought he was white. He didn't know that. So he was leading the classes, and they were just building him up to become this. And a number of the American soldiers that were training with him were making all of these references to, you know, niggers and, you know, disgusting. We have to be with them, fight with them, and all of this. And my dad stood up to say something about, you're standing with one. So he was pulled out of there, and they opened up his paperwork, and they saw that they had stamped Caucasian on all of his paperwork because they based it on his skin. And that was so all of his mail and everything that was sent to him at that time, they wouldn't allow him to have it. And the sergeant in charge of the training would put it all at the bottom of a big, huge hill, and would carry it up to the top of a big, huge hill and make my dad climb up on his elbows and knees to get each piece of mail. And every time he would go to the bottom, he would say, "All right, nigger, jar the ground." And my dad would do his elbows and knees all the way to the top, and he'd drop a piece of mail that was consistent until he was bloodied. Then he was beaten up in the shower and stabbed in the shower. And I remember my dad telling me that even when he was begging to be moved, and he got to the point where he faced all of the other American soldiers, and he said to them, "There are no niggers in a foxhole. A foxhole. And when we are together out there, I will have your back and you will have mine, because we're fighting a common enemy, and that makes us brothers. We're fighting for the cause of peace and of love. Remember, there are no niggers in a foxhole." And I do believe that this is where we are now in the world, that if we don't recognize that we are fighting a common enemy, and that is our survival, that is humanity, that is our democracy, that is our mere existence, then we will not survive. And that is going to start in the human heart.
I did not know those stories about your father in the service.
Mm-hmm.
That's yeah. You know, so there were so many comments that came in while we were showing the video. Roger has taken your quote, "Love is our ground zero." And several people commenting on how proud your father is of you, must be of you, and you are carrying on in such a powerful and beautiful way, Piper.
Thank you, Scott.
I'm honored to be in the foxhole with you.
And I'm honored to be in the foxhole with you too, brother. I love you.
We have work to do, my dear
We
Robert.
do. We do.
All right, well, we're going to hear from all of our other presenters with a chance for them to kind of give their final thoughts. And I'll just go in the same order that we had gone before. So Dr. Marty Casey, let me find you. There she is, Dr. Marty K. Casey from the Ungun Institute. Dr. Marty, you got us off to such a powerful start tonight, and what an evening it's been.
It really has been, my goodness. It truly has been an honor to be here and to share the stage with such powerful human beings. So I thank each of my sisters for their voices and their words tonight and the sharing of their stories. I believe that the question that you asked, Scott, was
We're the Global Peace Tribe, right? And we're here to carry on the legacy of those that came before us. So what are your thoughts about what can we as spiritual activists do to create peace in our world?
First of all, peace is an inside job. In order for you to even activate and have peace to share with others, I first would have to challenge and ask you, are you living in peace or pieces? It's so important for you to be whole, for you to be healed, for you to know what love feels like so you know how to extend love. See, these are the things that we have to do with self. It really truly starts with self-love and self-care. And self-care is not that superficial, surface type of thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good pedicure and manicure, but that is not self-care. Self-care is being able to create medicine from within that will allow you to stand next to someone and they be able to be fueled from you. If I am light, I can stand next to someone in darkness and I can illuminate them, but I can't do that if I live in darkness. So I have to know at all times, who am I? Whose am I? And why am I? And my ancestors taught me that. See, I'm a little short, stout, chubby girl, but don't you be fooled by my size. Because I fight real tall. Real tall. And it was my ancestors that taught me that. Ungun Institute is built on these 4 principles. And in order to even activate that method, this is what I want you to remember. You first must give and then forgive so you can heal and then live. Some of us are just trying to live our best life, and you can't do that unless you've been able to give something, to sacrifice, to be of service to someone else first. And sometimes it's not about giving tangible things. We think automatically, we think gifting, we think money, we think time, but can you give grace? Can you just simply give grace? Can you give opportunity? Can you give someone a chance without judgment? Then can you forgive? Can you forgive yourself so you can forgive others? And then it's important for you to begin your own healing, because trauma is transferable and so is healing. So in order for you to transfer healing to someone else, you first have to heal. And now we live in our best life. These are things that my great-grandmother, who was born in 1910, taught me. And as Congressman Dellums was speaking, I saw behind him the hymn chart. And it was hymn 691, hymn 373, and I believe 285. And it just reminded me of my great-grandmother's hymn book.
Wow.
But she used it. She sang these songs every Sunday in church till the pages fell out of them. You understand? What song is in your heart? What is the song that you can sing to bring the light from the inside up and out into the world? What song is on your heart? Get a song. Get a song where you can sing from the inside. Because I'm going to tell you a little something about healing. And this is what I do in my one-woman show. When my great-grandmother had lost 2 of her children and had reached her lowest point of life, and the trauma closed up her throat chakra where she couldn't even speak or eat. They had to crunch up crackers, her sisters, and put it on her tongue and then give her water through a straw to keep her alive. She could not talk, but she could sing.
Hmm.
And it was through the song of the mind and the sense memory that allowed her to heal herself from the inside. Get a song on your heart so that even when they try to silence your voice, you can sing something and activate that light from the inside and be powerful no matter how tall you stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marty. And a reminder that you can find the wonderful work she's doing on unguninstitute.com. Unguninstitute.com. We've honored Marty. We did an entire show dedicated to Marty. I'll find that and I'll put it in the chat box. And Dr. Marty, it's always such a pleasure. I love you very much.
And I love you back, Scott. And you know what? Again, I just want to make mention, because it's been a little minute here. I will be performing in New York for the United Nations. And we don't know if this will be the last time that one will have an opportunity to perform there. I'm inviting you to come out. This happens to be on March 15th, and I know that's the same day that you will be honoring our sister Anasuya here. And so I will not be able to be online to support and to attend. But right now, in this moment, I would like to dedicate my show on March 15th to you, Anasuya. Know that I will be performing this show in the United Nations in your honor, sister. May God continue to bless us all, because there's so much work we all must do to be a blessing.
Wow. I mean, I got chills when you said that, Dr. Marty. So we will start our show by pulling up your poster and just imagining and knowing how successful it was, how extraordinarily successful it was. And what a perfect transition from you, Dr. Marty, to our beloved Hallelujah, Anasuya.
You got me tearing up over here. Just for some context, Scott has graciously offered this space and leaves the sacred room in support of my healing. I have 4 major surgeries coming up this year, and I just had one that was minor on Wednesday, which I didn't even know about, and a lot of things that would support me are not covered by my insurance. And so this fundraiser is to support me in having a stronger body to do the work God has called me to be able to be in this body and handle the challenges that come with walking this out. Because I'm very aware that what I'm called to do is great things and it's scary things, and my body is not strong enough to handle it at this moment. So, I've committed to doing what I need to do, no matter if I'm on my back like Frida Kahlo and can't move for 17 million years. I'm still going to do it, but I am asking for support and doing it in a healthier way. So this is why there will be a fundraiser on my behalf on the 15th, and I really hope you all come. Even just to know that I'm not alone, because so much of this feels very lonely. And I'm in a place where I'm 1,000 miles away from any family. And most of this journey that I've been on for the last 4 years has been alone. So I'm grateful for my new friends here in California. I'm not from here and I didn't mean to be here, but the medicine brought me here. And I'm very grateful that I've got excellent care here. But it has made me away from everybody I knew and loved. So, and I'm very grateful that new friends like Scott and Omashar and people here in California, have embraced me and said, okay, you're one of us. So, and I really needed that from my heart. Because these are trying times. It's very hard. Just to put it unpoetically, it's just hard being a Black woman right now. I don't know when it's never been hard, but it is super hard right now. And I can be with it because my ancestors showed me the way. And I need a healthier body to do what's needed of me. And so thank you all for just being here and being with my sisters and being with us as we navigate our spiritual activism in all the forms that we are and are not, in all the healthy situations that we have and are not. Don't. Because, not everybody is speaking on challenges they have to the degree that we have them. But I only mentioned it because Scott and Dr. Marty just so graciously brought up the 15th side. Just didn't want it to be like, what are they talking about? What is this name, Anasuya? It's the Save My Life crew. So thank you very much. Because I need a lot of shamanic and holistic medicines that have nothing. My insurance won't even look at them. But I know there's a healthier way to heal than all the drugs and chemicals. And I've tried to put off these surgeries and said there must be another way. But, I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? Trust God. But for as much as I can get some holistic sources in me to balance out the drugs. Right now, I was in the hospital for a week because I had radiation poisoning from the nuclear stress test. I had a really bad reaction to it. So, it's just, anyway, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to say, Dr. Marty.
Comment, Anasuya, which is that part of spiritual activism is taking care of our family and our community. That is another part of spiritual activism, is for us to be in tune with who is in need of support right now. And, there's a lot of ways we can do that. Starting a GoFundMe, like, we've done for some of the people here tonight, and like we'll be doing for Anasuya, is one way. Another way is just every day, who do you know that's struggling? Send them a text message, send them a card, call them, reach out. Just as a daily practice, take some moment each day to tune in to who do you know that's struggling and pray for them. These are simple things, even if we have no money and we can't afford green energy.
Yeah.
Take time to pray. This is spiritual activism as well. So, right now, previously it was Piper's time. Right now it's going to be your time, Anasuya. So, I just wanted to add that is part of spiritual activism. And I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much. By your wording, I just remember an old gospel song that I'll sing just a little line of, because it frees my spirit when I sing, especially to God. And it goes, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. It's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Oh, standing in the need of prayer. Oh, standing in the need of prayer. Not my mother, not my father, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Not my sister, not my brother, it's me, oh Lord, standing in the need of prayer. Oh, standing in the need of prayer. Oh, standing in the need of prayer. So yes, I believe prayer works. I know it does. And yes, praying has currency too, people. Prayer has currency too. So I have been chosen by the divine feminine in the form of the Black Madonna, who is the original earth goddess, the original earth mother, the original creatress mother, that the Catholic Church took over and renamed her Mary, renamed her the mother of Jesus. But she was here millions of years before Christianity, the Abrahamic traditions came in. But what you got? In the hymn book, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Marty. She was there before everyone. And like Sister Piper spoke on, our earth mother that birthed all Homo sapiens, we know that as above, so below. So there is also the equal equivalent on high, which is the divine mother, who is black as the night, black as the cosmos, black as the ocean, black as the earth, black, black, black. And that our ancestors understood was the earth goddess. And she has a million names depending on our culture, the culture we're in. Many languages call her by different things. But she was there before patriarchy and the male god said, convert or die. And so she allowed herself to be renamed Mary, so that she could stay with her children and they could still have her and be in her presence. And so many of them were converted into Black Madonnas. And some of them stayed in their pagan forms, what they call pagan forms, her original form. And some of them were converted to, well, she looks like her, but we're going to add this baby. So I've been very gifted with the ability to channel her when she wants to speak to her children. And when I asked her earlier if she wanted to speak, she said, yes, I always have something to say to my children. Just get out, just open your mouth. So I'm just going to open my mouth and bless us all, including myself, with whatever she has to say. I don't know it. We're going to hear it. We're going to discover it together. But she has said she has something to say. So let me breathe her in. My beautiful children, my beautiful, gorgeous children, your hearts are so on fire with love. I see me in you. I see the gift of your wisdom and your shining love. Your hearts are blindingly beautiful in the way that we need. Thank you for saying yes to being born at such a time as this. When you came before Father and I and said you were ready to incarnate and come to this planet, this earth. And when we were choosing with you as a co-creation, who you chose to be, what sex, what color, what nationality, what language, what religion, all these experiences that we had to put in your parents so that you could have the journey you needed to this point. When you said, put me in, coach, put me in, coach. When you said you wanted to come here, we reminded you that you will forget your promises in this moment. You will forget, but we will always walk with you. And I, as the Holy Spirit, will always be with you to remind you, this is it. Speak up. Love them. Love that one you want to punch in the face. Because you chose this time to bring such amazing divine grace in your walk, in your talk, in your loving, in your fighting, in your angst, in your anxiety, in your overeating, undereating, in your lovemaking and war making. That's all preparation for this time. That was all the training you needed to know how to hear me and allow your mother to guide you. I'm here to remind you that you are needed. Don't think you're too small, too poor, too black, too white, too old, too whatever. Those things may be true, but you're not too much or too little for this time. It's not too late to make the difference. It's not too late to be the hero in your movie, But most importantly, it's not too late to be the hero and shero in somebody else's film, somebody else's life story. Whether you mentor someone, feed someone, invite someone, care for someone, bless someone, love someone, pray for someone. Whatever you do, you can choose to make the difference in their life by just blessing them with your wisdom, with your gifts and talents, with your very breath, with the sound of your voice that could be soothing or shocks them into action. None of it's bad. You are needed, which is why you chose this time. And most importantly, you are wanted. You are wanted. You are wanted and loved. Do you hear me? Each one of you are wanted and loved right now, as you are and as you aren't, with your frailties and mistakes and the things you get wrong, and in your opinion, we don't see it that way. And the things you judge yourself harshly for, it's all perfect to us. That just makes you the beautiful human that you are. We don't need you to be us. We got this. But we do need you to be you. The you came here to be, fully expressed in your divinity. I tell you, if you say yes to being you, that is enough, because we will come and bless it. We will be the wind under your wings. We will be the sound in your voice. We will be the words that travel out of your mouth. We will be the blessing that comes out of your hands. We will be all you need if you say yes and let us come through you. Are y'all listening? Your mother and father loves you so much, and we will never abandon you. And when it's time to leave this body and come back to us, report, if you so choose, taking a new assignment, you will know that you were always here. It just looked like there, but you're really here. It just looks like there. Isn't that something? You are exactly who the world needs right now. You are, each one of you are exactly what the world needs right in this holy instant. My sacred children, my beloved children, my delightful children, my fun and easy and cantankerous children. All of you are beloved to me. May you be lovable to each other. May you be love as we define it, unconditional acceptance. You hear me? We say love is unconditional acceptance of who people are and who they aren't right in this moment. Can you do that? It takes something. It takes something. But there are no enemies. There are some broken people doing some harmful things. There are some traumatized people taking pleasure in traumatizing. There are people crying out for love in their dysfunction. Can we love them to healing? It's going to take something. But yes, you can do it, because you are us. There's not one part of you that isn't infused with all of our being. And you can be as much us as you choose to be by your willingness to expand and be uncomfortable and go to places you do not know. But we are there too. We are there too. In the blackness of the mystery and in the light of the sun and in the pink of the rose, in the blueness of the ocean, in the song of the hummingbird. There's no place we are not. You can see us everywhere. You can talk to me anytime you want. Your mother, will always have food on the stove for you, some clean clothes, something I put together in my time. I'll always have something for you. Just come on home, sit with me for a spell, and hear me talking to you, because I will always talk if you listen. Actually, I'm always talking whether you listen or not. I just like talking to you. I want you to know where you came from, and it is from me, and I'm with you. So thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And that will never change. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that divine transmission. Thank you. We will, of course, be with Hallelujah Anasuya. But between now and then, I invite you to visit her link tree. Again, it's link tree Hallelujah Anasuya. And there's so many beautiful things there, including
More coming.
the past. So definitely visit that. Hallelujah. I love you so much. Thank you.
I love you too. And I'm so grateful for you seeing me and seeing us. Because even though we're Black and loud and bold and bodacious and audacious, we are still invisible to so many millions of people. So when I say thank you for seeing me and seeing us, I mean it. You truly see us and you have just blessed us with that. Thank you.
Received. Thank you. All right. I want to give Reverend Rhetta and Ivy a chance to conclude. I actually have a client waiting for me. I was supposed to do a session at 8:45. So you could kind of keep it a little bit on the share what you want to share, but we also have an Omashar song to conclude with. So where is Dr. Ivy? There she is. Hello, Dr. Ivy.
Hello, my love. So I know, in keeping in respect of the time, and we always have so much to say and so much to share, but I just want to invite everyone to join me and the wellness community for mindful living on Wednesdays, every Wednesday from 8 to 9. We just sit and we do sonic healing. We elevate our minds. This is all about elevating the mind, recalibrating the mind, and just restoring the spirit. And it's just a weekly opportunity. You just come on. You don't have to show yourself on screen. You just come, put your headphones on, make sure you have your incense, your anointing oil, light your candle, and sit back and allow the sound frequencies. By just listening to them, it resets brain ratio. 15 minutes instantly shifts. 45 minutes of this practice is equivalent to 4 hours of deep rest. So, no better way than to reset the cellular structure than to use sound healing and sound frequencies. So I invite you to elevate with me. And we'll see you again real soon.
And again, I have, of course, had the QR code up, but I also show people the QR code will take you to this page here where you can sign up. And it's drivysoundspa.com. I'm going to bring the QR code up again in a moment, but again, let's all register. What a beautiful gift she's offering. Every Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, that's 5 o'clock for us California Pacific Coast kids. And again, here's the QR code. Right now, you all know how to do it, but if you don't, you take your trusty cell phone and you open up the camera setting and you go towards it and you find it, and then you'll see it'll come up. You'll see where you can click and you just hit it, and that'll take you to Dr. Ivy's Sound Spa. And Dr. Ivy, that's such a beautiful gift that you're offering, and it's I'm putting it into my of course I've got my shows on Wednesday nights, but I could do that from 5 o'clock till 5:30, 5:40, and then I've got my sound check. So I'm going to put that in as a way to always kind of get myself ready up to and for our Wednesday night shows.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you, Dr. Ivy. Thank you. All right, and let me find Reverend Rhetta. What a full and beautiful evening is. There she is.
Peace and blessings as we are coming to the end. So I would like to sort of bookend this program by inviting you all to take a deep breath with me. And I'm wondering if we could just take maybe about 30 seconds together in silence. And, we have these full programs with so much richness. I just love if each of us could pull one thing that really is standing out for us into our awareness, to just sit with that just for a few seconds. May peace prevail. Amen.
Reverend Rhetta, thank you so much. And I appreciate both you and Dr. Ivy. Boy, I mean, you didn't need to be that short, but my client will appreciate that. Thank you so much. And here is where we can find all things Reverend Rhetta. It's her website, reverendrhetta.com, reverendrhetta.com. And I do want to, I'm going to bring up all of our guests one last time for us to just send them our love and appreciation. So I'm going to bring them all up. There's Hallelujah Anasuya. There's Dr. Marty K. Casey. There's Piper. Where's Dr. Ivy? There she is. God bless all five of you. Just amazing. This is like the best church ever, right? Just amazing. It really is like been a powerful service, and we will continue this conversation. We're going to continue on March 15th when we honor Anasuya, and we're going to continue 2 weeks after that on March 29th as we continue to explore what does it mean to be a spiritual activist. I will invite a couple of other voices to speak on those evenings. We're going to invite some friends of Anasuya. Christy Michaels is helping to set that up. And then on the 29th, we're going to invite a few other voices too, a couple of others. But thank you so much for being amazing role models of spiritual activism. Thank you. We're going to conclude in a moment with an Omashar song, but I do want to make a couple of quick announcements. It is time to register for our new spring season. And if you register now, you'll get the Zoom room links to all of our shows all the way through the end of June. And we're going to have Marianne Williamson back on. We're talking with Marianne, and we're setting up something special with her. We're going to be coming to you live from a lot of your favorite festivals, like the New Living Expo. Chief Phil Lane will be back with us. All the wonderful presenters that you see. Kristen Hoffman. I was on the phone today, had a phone call with the Twin Ray. So we've got some wonderful things planned. Please do join us. And it's really easy for those of you that are in the Zoom room. I will put the link to where you can register into the chat box. And for those of you that are watching on Facebook or YouTube, just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com. And when you go there, you'll see where it says register. Just click register for the new season. Come and join us. It's an amazing community of beautiful, beautiful people. And we do shows every Wednesday night and every Saturday night. And once or twice a month, we do a Sacred Sunday show. And our next Sacred Sunday show is going to be a week from tomorrow. We're going to have a very special Sacred Sunday show coming to you live from the Soul Search Enlightenment Expo. And that Sacred Sunday show is going to be an 8-hour show concluded by Dr. John Gray. John Gray doing a live program. So that's going to be a very special Sacred Sunday show. Last announcement is this Wednesday night. We have a special edition of Authors That We Love. All of these amazing women you see here collaborated together in writing a book called Her Coronation. And again, it's about the return of the goddess. So we're going to hear from 5 women who collaborated and co-created a very powerful new book. And that'll be our show this coming Wednesday night. And the next Saturday night, it'll be another show coming to you live from Soul Search with several soul searchers, including Tangela. So that's what we've got coming up. All right. Finally, I want to read a few of the final comments. I always send out the link to the Sacred Sunday show. I see your question. Again, it's a week from tomorrow is the Sacred Sunday show. And I always email that link out to all of our subscribers. And yes, Jerry Anderson, this is our weekly church, isn't it? Connie writes, brilliant to ask people to come forward with a perspective and experience of spiritual activism. And let's all practice that this week. Moving from the expression of victim to the beloved, stretching into what we can do. I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to turn it over to Omar Shah to close us out with a beautiful Omar Shah song. And I want to thank Diara. She sent me an audio song to play to conclude, but a little too late. I had already planned to do a closing song with Omar Shah, but thank you, Diara, and we will play your song sometime this month, I promise. All right, where is, there he is, all right.
Embrace it, all that seems dark, embrace it. All that seems unlovable, embrace it, and be whole again. Be whole again. Be whole again. Oh, traveler, let nothing go by. Let nothing be denied. Let the child inside cry. Darkness is known by the light. Embrace it, all that seems dark, embrace it. All that seems unlovable, embrace it and be whole again. Be whole again. And be whole again. Oh, adventurer, nothing can be left out. Faith is the brother of doubt. How about loving the fearful into wholeness, holy oneness? Embrace it, all that seems dark, embrace it. All that seems unlovable, embrace it and be whole again. Be whole again. How about loving the fearful into wholeness, holy oneness?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Omar Shah. Going to go to gallery view so we can all see our beautiful global peace tribers who have their cameras on.
And just as a recognition, that's a Kathy Zavada song.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. And thank you, Omar Shah, for doing it as such a beautiful cover. Wonderful to see all of you. Christine Hodel is in the house. That's fun. Wow. All right. Much love, everybody. Hope to see you on Wednesday night. Have a beautiful rest of the weekend. Tomorrow is Sunday. Make it a sacred Sunday by seeing the divine in all, just as I see the divine in each and every one of you right now. Thank you, everybody. Good night.